Some of you may have seen the short I did not too long ago. I wasn't feeling well. I made some chicken noodle soup and I made a quick little short about it, kind of teasing it. And I got a pretty good response, so I figured I'd better make it again and show you how to make it. The good news is this is an easy recipe. It's pretty simple in terms of ingredients and technique. There are two parts. First, we make a stock, and we'll show you how to do that. Kind of do this sort of a quicker way. So if you have your own way of making stock, you could also just do that. And then the second part is we'll make the soup from that stock. I kind of do it as one process, but you could also do this in 2 different days or 2 different sessions or whatever if you want to. Anyways, let's not talk anymore. Let's get cooking. For this recipe, I use about 4 pounds of bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. I get fairly decent ones. These are free range and stuff, and they taste pretty good. Basically, this is mostly about chicken, right? So the better chicken you get, probably the better it's going to taste. And then all I'm going to do is cut them in half. We're just going to do this really quickly here. I'll just show you how I do one of them, and you can imagine the rest, okay? Let me just get one of these thighs out here. You could use these as is, but cutting them in half is one of our shortcuts. Okay, so in order to not have to boil this recipe, to simmer this sauce for basically the stock all day, we're going to cut these bones in half. And if you're not familiar with chicken thighs, there's just one bone, and you find the one end and the other end, and there's just one bone here. The rest is all meat. And what I want to do is I want to cut that. And I've got my big 10-inch chef's knife here. A cleaver would work even better, but I don't have one. And I use the pretty thick part of the blade here, and I just put that right on there and cut right through that. Right? I just do that. I'll do one more here real quick just in case it helps. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to show you the other way I do it. It's the one way. That's more precise, but to be honest, it hurts your hand. So, at least with my knife here, it hurts my hand after I do a bunch of these. So, after a while, usually I start going, I'll cut down to the bone like that. Then, keeping this hand well out of the way, I'm just going to chop. But see what happens then is bits of stuff go everywhere. I have this cutting board so I don't get meat on this, but I just got meat on it. So it's kind of the downside is control is an issue. So cut them in half however you want to or can. Okay, we're over at the stove. I've got a 6-quart Dutch oven on the stove. Yes, if you're wondering, it's one of the ones I use for bread. And I've got this over medium-high heat. I just turned it on. And I'm just going to put in about a tablespoon of oil. A little tiny more. And let that get hot. All right, we're just about 400 degrees here. About 378 on average here. By the way, with my infrared thermometer, I like to set the average so that this bottom number gives me the average if I sort of swoop it around the bottom of the pan. Anyways, now what we're going to do is brown. I'm just going to put in about, come on, half of the chicken pieces. I like to put them skin down, or skin side up first. That's why I'm fighting with this one here. Being a little funny. Get about half of them into there. Want to crowd the pan too much, but I find I kind of just cover the bottom. You're going to have to do that, or else you could do this in more steps. So I'm going to leave them on this side for about 5 minutes. And this is on kind of medium-high heat. And we flip them. Basically just trying to brown them. We're not trying to really cook them so much here as we are trying to brown them, caramelize them a bit, build up some flavor. Okay, about 5 minutes later, I haven't actually touched them. Haven't moved them at all. All I did was I sort of spun the pan around 180 degrees to sort of even out the heat about halfway through. And then now I'm just going to flip them over. See, they're nicely browned on the bottom. Now we're just going to flip them over and do the same thing. Again, another 4 to 5 minutes on this side. And then we're going to do the same thing to the rest of the chicken. So I'll just show you this, and we'll see you when all the chicken's done. Okay, the second batch of chicken is done. I've even turned off the heat here, but it's still sizzling just a little bit. I wanted to show you just the results. Not so much of the chicken, but of the pan. So you get these last few pieces out of here, and you can't see, but what I'm doing is I just have a bowl just off camera here, and then I'm just putting them into to wait for a moment, and I'm trying to get all the bits of skin and stuff that stick, any big bits. And now I'm gonna pour off the fat, and I want you to see all of that sort of. You might think, oh no, the pan is dirty now, or I messed up because some of the meat and stuff stuck to the pan with the Dutch oven. That's okay. This is flavor. This is delicious. It's going to cook off, and it'll be perfect. So what I've done now, I poured off the fat. I'll get rid of that later after it cools, and then I'm gonna put it back on sort of medium heat here. Add 1 onion, just chopped. It can be fairly big pieces. It's not that big a deal. And then all the chicken goes back in. And any juices, of course, right? That's all goodness in there. And then I'm just gonna cover this. Actually, I'm gonna put it down to about kind of medium low to low. I just wanted to warm up first, and then I'll probably turn it down a little bit. I'm just going to leave it cook like this for about 20 minutes. Okay, so I messed up a little bit here, and I missed some of this. It's 20 minutes later. I just took the lid off, and I added 2 quarts of water, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 2 bay leaves. And then I've given it a little stir, and that's it. I've got it. I've turned the heat up, and I'm going to bring it to a simmer, and then we'll put the lid on and let it sit for another 20 minutes. I may or may not show you all of that. Okay, so it's just coming to a simmer. You can see I put the lid back on, but sort of left it off a little bit. That way I can kind of hear and see it bubbling, but it actually does speed it up a little bit. So I've just got it to a simmer. I'm going to give a little stir here. Just get it all going. And then I'm going to turn the heat down pretty much back to low. Just keep it barely bubbling. And we're going to do that for another 20 minutes. Okay, it's just about 20 minutes later. And I'm taking it off the heat here. That's why it's actually about 23 minutes. I had to have a little snack. I was hungry. And so you can see it's barely bubbling here. And next thing I'm going to do is I've saved that same bowl that I was using earlier. I'm going to put all the chicken, anything I can get out, any pieces of skin or anything like that. I'm going to take all of these guys out, and then we'll meet you over on the counter here in a second we'll separate the rest. We'll get this all out of here. Okay, we're over on the counter now. I've just put down a towel. I've got a bowl and a strainer here. There's a million ways you could do this. I'm just gonna strain out any last bits. And I happen to know that my Dutch oven doesn't pour very well. It likes to dribble, so that's why I have this here. A little bit here. Let's see if we can. Sometimes if you do it quickly, it'll behave better. All right. Let's see. Still a little bit of stuff in there, but just a tiny bit of fond at the bottom. All right, and then So I've got mostly catching all the onions. I've already taken the bay leaves out. I did that. Just like to make sure those get out. But they're not going to make it through this process anyways, because this is the end result already, right? None of the solids. We're going to save the chicken for the chicken noodle soup. We'll see that in a minute here. But so what I'm going to do, instead of standing here forever letting this drain, I've got another bowl here, and I'm just going to put that on here and let that sit off camera a bit and do its final thing, because I want to get this juice, this chicken stock, into fat separator as soon as possible. Now, one challenge, I only have one fat separator. Probably should buy another one. I've looked for 4-quart ones, but they don't seem, at least I have not found one. So what I tend to use is I just grab another 1-quart vessel of some kind. I like this one because it pours. But in this one, it'll do the fat separation, kind of by itself. The fat goes to the top. And this is why I want to get that in there quickly, is to let it do its thing, get it in there, rise up. And then when you pour, it pours clear, non-fat juice. This one I'm going to have to scrape off the top. So I think this is going to be kind of hot. So actually, I'm going to do this. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to pour this direction. And well, see, now it's pouring everywhere. All right, I'm going to leave that for just a second here. Wow, you get to see me make a total mess. Look at that. Yay. Luckily, there's none on luckily I have this towel handy still. I thought somehow I could maybe salvage that, but it's fine. This seems to happen just about every time. I need to find a better way to pour it, but okay. I'm gonna let those sit for about 10 minutes. Make sure enough of the fat, although this one really you can already see after a minute it's already there. And then this one I'll probably scrape it a little bit as we go, but see in about 10 minutes. Just sit that there. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, and you can see it's not too much different, to be honest, but I've been told to wait 10 minutes, that it lets enough of all the fat or most of the fat get up to the top. This one is pretty good to go, right? I mean, there's not a lot we can do about the little bit of fat that's in the stem. I don't really mind it anyways. You could always pour it off and then pour it, but I'd leave it. This one we're going to let sit here. And on this one, what I'm going to do is I've got another little bowl, and I just like to use a soup spoon, or sometimes I've got a metal ladle thing that kind of works too. And I'm just going to go in, and you can see that I've got a little bit of a skin here. That's kind of good. You gather that up. I'm just going to try to get that little bit of fat layer off the top. Just let a little bit of I'm just trying to tip this in. Let fat into the spoon. Let it flow in and then pull it up. It's kind of tedious. And if I were to make this all the time, I would definitely invest into fat separators, but that's good. And to be honest, I don't mind a little bit of, I'm not trying to get every last bit of fat out. I mean, you do you, and look out for things like fat and stuff, but I kind of like some of it in there for the flavor. I see a few little floaty bits here too. I'm trying to get them out. And you kind of use the side of it to tell. To me, that's pretty good. That's about all I'm going to do. So we now have essentially 2 quarts. Once I pour this out, I need to get another container, and I'm basically going to pour it back into the pot as part of making chicken soup here. So they're just going to stay like this and wait a bit. So if all you wanted to do is make chicken stock, then ta-da, you're done. You made your stock. Now you can go do whatever you want to with it. If, though, you're here to make chicken noodle soup, then we're going to do that in the next stop. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is separate the chicken. We've got the chicken in a bowl here, and there's pieces of onions in there, and there's bones and skin. And Well, all I want is the meat. So I don't normally use a tray like this, but you can't have the meat, Bella. I've got a little bowl right about here, and I'm just separating out the bones, any gristle, pretty much anything that's not kind of nice to eat. Any meat, go down here. If it's questionable, it doesn't go in here. And I just do it about like that. By the way, I like chicken thighs for this because they hold up well. They're not, they don't dry out. Believe it or not, breasts can dry out even in water. And they have more flavor. The fat in them seems to make them more sturdy, and they don't come apart in the soup like chicken breast does. So they're a little bit fattier, but I think that's a good thing for chicken soup. So I see like this one. There's some meat on here I could pull off, but I've learned to be careful. You don't want to get pieces of bone in here or just weird bits. I don't want to eat weird bits, basically. There's an onion. So I'm just gonna do this, and just gonna separate all the rest of this out real quick, and see you when I'm done. Just a few minutes. Okay, we're back over at the stove. Same Dutch oven as we had before. I wiped out some little bits that I thought were bone, but I left the other stuff in there because the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to get this back up over kind of medium-high heat and add about another tablespoon of, I am using avocado oil here, but some kind of vegetable oil, and going to let that get hot. Okay, now the oil is pretty hot. It's about 375-ish. I'm going to add one onion, diced or chopped pretty fine. One large carrot, sliced thin. And a large rib of celery, sliced thin. Some of you may recognize those three things. A clove of garlic. Minced, basically. I've chopped it, not quite minced, really. And then about 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme. I really like the fresh stuff here. I think it makes a difference, but if you don't have it, don't worry. All right, I'm just gonna cook that up here. Let this get kind of soft, just for a few minutes. Gonna pour in the broth. First the one that we had to skim. And then this one I have to be a little bit careful. I'm gonna watch. I don't know how much you can see, but I'm watching to see when the fat starts to touch. Basically, once it starts to suck up fat into the whatever you call that, where it comes out. Once fat starts to pour out, I'm gonna stop. But that's pretty far down. I'm gonna go a little more. What? Yeah, no, we're not gonna do any more of that fat. Okay. Okay, we got that in there. And that chicken that we separated. It's all gonna go in here. This is that same bowl that I initially did the chicken in. It's very handy. All right, all that chicken goes in there. Give that a little stir. You can see we're almost done. We're definitely getting there. And don't worry if there's some big pieces. You actually want that. They will come apart. If you make them all really small, they're just going to disintegrate. So just going to let this cook another 15 minutes or so. And actually, no, you know what? We're just going to bring this up to a boil. What you do next kind of depends on the type of noodles you're going to use. My favorite is these guys, at least that I can buy in the store. They're all thick, home-style egg noodle, like my grandma used to make. it's almost as if you rolled it out and then cut them, right? You could use the bag kind, the dried kind. And if you do, then you want to let this go another 15 minutes, then add them. But these take like 20 minutes to cook. So as soon as this comes up to a boil, I'm going to throw them in there and then cook it for about 20 minutes. So we'll get that. Okay, it is, where's my pot holder? We got a good boil going here. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a stir, and I'm actually going to put these guys in. Now, you probably only want about 10 ounces of noodles. This is 12 ounces, so it makes a lot of noodles. I don't mind that. I like it, but if you don't, you could use a little bit less. I'm going to dump these in there. I probably could have put them in earlier. I don't think it really matters. I just sort of like to let it get warm up and then put a thing in. I'm going to let it get back up to temp there, and then I'll turn it down and put the lid on. Okay, you may not need to see this, but we're up to a nice kind of simmer, light boil here. That's all I really need. Just wanted to get it up and get it nice and warm. A little stir here. And then we're just going to let that all sort of cook together on low for 15 minutes. So the final things, I'm going to put in about 2 teaspoons of parsley flakes. Dried parsley. You could use fresh parsley. That's probably even preferred. It's just that I don't like buying big bunches of parsley and just using part of it. And then I know it always rots before I can use it again. The last thing, and this is quite possibly one of the most important things, is salt. You've got to get the salt right on this. You've got to add enough. If I taste this now, grab a spoon here. I'm going to taste it now, even though you can't taste it, but it doesn't taste very good. It's really flat. It needs a good, I want to say tablespoon or 2, but what I do at this point is I'll just add about a teaspoon, stir it in, taste it. So I'm going to I'll show you what I do. I just kind of sprinkle, I sort of feel it. The first one I know, I'm not too worried. But salt is one of those things we don't want to add too much. It will just the right amount. So I'm going to add about that much. I'm going to stir it. And that was probably about a teaspoon, maybe a little more. I'll let it sit about a half hour, about a minute or 2. Taste it again. And I'm just going to keep doing that until the flavor is just right. But start to slow down on how much salt you add. You don't want to over salt it. You can always kind of creep up on it. But if you go over, you have problems. Okay. This is probably fair enough to. Getting somewhere. Actually, another like half a teaspoon. This doesn't taste too bad. But if it tastes horrid at first, don't worry. I was scared when I made this the first few times. I thought something was wrong until I just got the salt level up there, and it was delicious. So, yeah, here we are. That's pretty much it. I'm going to either have that for dinner tonight or tomorrow night. And I hope you make it too, and let me know what's going on, what happens for you, and if you do anything different, that's great. If you have any tips or suggestions, I think this is pretty good the way it is, but hey, there's always some room for improvement. And if you like this video, consider subscribing, liking, sharing, stuff like that. And have a great day. See you next time.